Yo, welcome to the Score Magic YouTube. Today, we're going to look at a tier list Thursday of a tier list of post-rotation decks currently in Japan. Now, it's not a tier list that I'm going to make. Why am I not going to make it? Why am I going to take it from a Japanese Twitter, which I'll have a link down below, because they're playing the format and I'm not. And I think that's something you really need to keep in mind when you look at, there are a lot of content creators doing this type of stuff, and these tier lists and stuff like that is like, why, when we have so many results from hundreds and hundreds of games from a ton of players, are people making their own tier list when they get to play, 10, 15, 20 games in total of a format? So I think this is a lot to learn. They've been playing in this format for a little while now. I think it's been about a month. We recently had our Champions League. We have a ton of city leagues every single weekend. And this is what it is currently looking like in our post-rotation meta. Now, this is presumably the exact same format with the exact same cards that we're going to be having come rotation. Currently, they have not gotten their next set quite yet, because the next set coming out in Japan is going to be in our May, I believe, maybe June, May/June-ish set. So this is the exact same format we're looking at now. S tier, it appears to be the Sable Zard mostly, although we've seen a few other lists as well. Check out PokeCA book for the specifics of like the list doing well, but we've seen some that are like Mirage Gate with Zamazenta. We've seen some that have the Dragonite and the Raikou and the stuff you'd expect there. Generic Lost Box, obviously without the amazing rares, because the amazing rares either all or mostly rotate. There might be one or two that survive, but like they're all gone. So they are relying on the Zamazenta from Crown Zenith, the Raikou V, the Dragonite V, the Radiant Greninja, or it's the straightforward Sable Zard list that doesn't run the Mirage Gates and instead is just like, I'm going to Sableye you to death and then I'm going to Zard you to death, and I'm going to hope that's enough. Both of those are up here in the S tier. Also in S tier is Lugia, and you may say, wait, there's no chance, right? If you've been paying attention, Lugia with single strike stuff is doing incredibly well. I think it is absolutely hilarious. Houndoom single strike stuff was like, it was meta for a brief period of time, but for the most part, Houndoom single strike engine was like, this is fine. It was like a mid-tier type deck, but suddenly you Archeops those single strike energies out, and you can do the impact energy, which Houndoom can't do, which is so stupid and upsetting. But you can Archeops out the single strike energy, you can Archeops out the double turbos, of course, for the Lugia. You can do the impact energy as well for extra rainbow energies on stuff like Tyranitar V or Duraludon V Max or the Baby Stonejourner or Umbreon V Max. There's a lot of really good single strike Pokemon, and single strike energy is broken. That card is just very good. Like, that is undoubted. Single strike energy is one of the best energy cards that they printed in the format. So Lugia is still surviving mostly with the single strike engine. You might see the occasional just other weird thing here and there, but its single strike by far is the most successful. And then Giratina falling at the low end of S tier. We did not see Giratina do super well in the Champions League. City League results is seeing less and less, and it seems like Giratina at the start of the post-rotation format in Japan was like dominant. And the reason it was so dominant is, it hit hard, it uses Sableye, uses Cramorant, so it's super good. But now that other lists are getting more and more refined, Giratina's falling back a bit. It seems to be a worse aggressive deck compared to Lugia, and it's of course worse than Lost Box at being a single prize deck. So Giratina is still incredibly good, incredibly powerful. I don't want to deny it's S tier here still for a reason, but it has fallen out of favor a little. Mew is at the top of tier 2. Drapion still exists. That's literally the only reason. Otherwise, Mew is still incredibly good. If Drapion weren't in so many lists, and the Tyranitar V in Lugia, Drapion is showing up in most Lost Box and Giratina lists. That's the only reason currently for Mew to be tier 2. Otherwise, Mew would be S tier. Mew is still incredibly good. Mew diehards, keep playing your Mew if you want to. Miraidon is also in tier 2. They have a little Flaffy next to it, which is interesting because a lot of the lists don't run Flaffy, or they run a ridiculously thin Flaffy line. And they've got like the Regielekis, and there might be something like a Luxray in there, maybe a Flying Pikachu, that kind of stuff. And so it is currently in tier 2. It's showing up here and there. It's not super successful, but it is more successful than the other decks that are below it. So, it's a deck that I'm personally a fan of. I like lightning stuff usually. Dynamote or Flaffy is good. And I like some of the lists that are like running a 2-2 or a 1-1 line, because like I'm gonna have a little bit of acceleration, but for the most part, I'm gonna rely on the Electro Charger, the thing that lets you look at the top 5 and attach as many lightnings as you find to your bench Pokemon. You know, that thing, right? The ability is incredibly good on the Miraidon. The attackers the lightning has is good. And so the deck is doing well. Tier 3 got second place. Be sure to check out the finals of the, I guess spoiler alert, sorry. Check out the finals of the Aichi Champions League, where I did English commentary last week. Guardy made it to the finals. I think Guardy is a deck that's going to start to creep up into tier 2 as the format kind of evolves a bit. Guardy players and Guardy lists get more and more refined. You know, Lost Box, we kind of already had the lists. Lugia, it's once the single strike list existed, it's like it is the deck, right? Like there's not a whole lot you can really do with it. You know, Giratina, same thing. Guardy and Miraidon are the two decks that should start to creep up if they're real decks on the tier list. As people get more experience with them, lists get better and better for them as well. Guardy's one that I expect to do a bit better. It's not going to be S tier currently, but Guardy's hanging out in tier 3. It shows up every once in a while. Like I said, it got second place at a 3,200 person Champions League. The deck is clearly good and powerful. And then Urshifu with Inteleon VMAX, you'll love to see it. With no ordinary rod, you can get rid of a mana fee, and then you can rapid flow to your heart's content for the most part. Obviously, Clara still exists. Rescue Carrier, no one's playing Rescue Carrier currently, but like if Urshifu ever got good enough, you could see Rescue Carrier sneak its way into Lost Box lists as well. But the fact that there is no ordinary rod and you have to commit a supporter for a turn to get your mana fee back is boding well for the deck, but it's not like super broken, unfortunately. It's just like it's good. It is a deck that I like personally. I would be super happy if it climbed up the ladder a little bit, but it's hanging out in tier 3. You do occasionally see other stuff show up as well, like Arceus variants, Arceus Duraludon, Arceus Coco, Arceus Flying Pikachu. These types of things show up as well, but their success isn't quite as good. I've seen Rapid Strike Mally show up occasionally. Sure, why not? That's another deck, but for the most part, these are the most successful decks in post-rotation in Japan, and I gave you a little bit of my thoughts too, right? I think Giratina is going to fall a little bit. I think Miraidon, it might stay tier 2, but it might, you know, be stronger in tier 2 than it currently is. And I think Guardy has a chance to get up to tier 2 as well. And Mew is going to stay tier 2 until people cut the Drapion. If people ever cut the Drapion, Mew is S tier, you know, absolutely good deck, right? Anyway, let me know in the comment section below what you disagree with. Of course, maybe you've been testing the format a lot more than, you know, a lot of us have. And so maybe you have your own opinions based off of what you've been playing. But like I said, I haven't really played post rotation much at all, like not enough to make my own tier list. So it's like, well, let's go ahead and take a tier list from people who are playing it and are looking at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games of results in order to make it. And let's share that with everyone else. You know, if you like this stuff, like, comment, subscribe, all the other YouTube stuff, and I will catch you all in the next video. Peace out.